Today is logistics. Logistics is, we use the term often to mean like what are the details. So if I'm going to go to the movie theater, when movie theaters are still open, what are the logistics of that happening? Or if we're going to go on a trip, we got to figure out the logistics. Logistics specifically in business has a different term. And the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals says logistics is really planning, implementing, and controlling the efficient and effective, remember that? Efficient and effective supply chains of the forward and reverse flow and storage of goods, services, and information from the point of origin to the point of consumption, not the point of destination, the point of consumption to meet customer requirements. Now, what does that mean? That means I'm really going to be focused on delivering things and storing things. Now, that could be goods, services, and information. So you can't really store services, but you can store the stuff, the physical goods, the inventory that goes with services. So we can appreciate that and understand that. It's both efficient and effective. So it means it satisfies the customer's needs and it reduces costs. And it's the whole process of moving things from point A to point B, where point B is when the consumer consumes it. So it could be their home. If you're buying groceries and you're going back to your home and you're going to have those at home, that's when you'll consume it. It could be the store. It could be the location of your service being performed. So all these things are part of logistics. Now, logistics includes reverse and forward flow, so it can go upstream or downstream. It's the flow of materials and information, goods or inventory with services and information. And then it's loading things, unloading things, sorting, moving, and selecting material. Now, what does that mean? That means we're going to be primarily transporting things, usually finished goods, but sometimes raw materials. We offload them, put them on loading docks, we load them, put them up on trucks, we sort them and select them, which means we kind of go through them, choose the items that we need, and then we send them away to the customer. Now, here's the fascinating part. Now, I have data from 2017. I know from 2018 that the United States, anything that's moving inventory, transportation, anything that's storing inventory, warehousing, anything that's order processing, which is making sure that the right things are going to the right customer, all of that exceeds in 2018 $13.1 trillion. Now, that's a lot of money. Okay, we're back up to our 2012 levels. So last year was $13.1 trillion. Now that's 10% of the GDP. It's actually, excuse me, that's actually 9% of the GDP from last year, or from 2018. That's a lot of money. Now, not billion, it's T with a trillion. Right? So think about how much money that is. All these trucks you see on the highway, all these planes you see flying overhead, all the boats you might see in the harbor that are barges carrying containers of equipment, all of that is over 10% of the GDP. And again, $13.1 trillion. That's a lot of money. So imagine you can save fuel, or you can save insurance costs, or you can save driver fees. How much money you could save. And this is just in the US. So in the world, I mean, it's probably over, I don't know, 30 trillion, 40 trillion. There's a lot of money here. The biggest one of all these, there are 5 components of logistics. The biggest one is transportation. So as we start transporting goods and services, we transport things in real time as much as possible. And so transportation is the biggest component of logistics. And I'll show that on a subsequent slide. Logistics service elements are ranked only second to product quality and importance to buyers. So the part or the item I have, it has to meet my expectations, it has to work well. And back up from there, the second most important thing over price is it's got to be able to get to me on time. And if I can't get it on time, that's a problem. So overall, that's what we're looking at. 10-30% of operating expenses and 5-20% of sales are spent on logistics. Again, it's just a huge number. And this is from 2017, but you can see in this graph on the gray line is the total logistics expenditure, 1980 versus 2017. And then the blue line is transportation. Transportation is about 70% of the logistics costs. So again, if you could save fuel costs, have an alternative fuel, or find a way to make fuel more efficient, you can save a lot of money, a crazy amount of money. By the way, does anybody happen to know what the miles per gallon is on a truck? We talk about miles per gallon on our cars and miles per gallon on motorcycles and fuel efficiency, electronic batteries. What is the fuel efficiency of a truck? Anyone want to take a guess? It is 7 miles per gallon. So think about where you are, 21, 23, 25 miles per gallon. A truck that you see on the highway is 7 miles per gallon. And I'll talk about that a little bit. Some new terminology for you. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay. So you get the idea that it's expensive. Now, here are the 5 parts to logistics. Starting on the bottom right, we have transportation, which I just talked about, 70% of our logistics costs. Our second one is the one on the bottom left. It's warehousing. Materials handling and packaging go with that. Packaging is putting an item in a package, and that's important. Michigan State actually has a packaging center where graduates or majors will look on how to best package things. So it eliminates damage for transportation because there's shock, there's packages can be thrown on can fly out of the truck and fly on the ground. Containers can fall off into the ocean. Out of all these things, how do you save them? Right. So it was amazing that was such a big deal that there was a major in packaging. With that, warehousing is where we store our stuff. Materials handling is a fancy term for we're going to take our stuff and figure out how to move it. So, for example, you may have seen people at Kroger or at Meijer working in the frozen foods department or working in the dairy, and they'll wear heavy jackets and they'll wear gloves just to protect themselves from the cold. That's materials handling. It's being able to handle things appropriately with cautious gear. So another one, if it's a radioactive material, you probably need to have some sort of hazmat suit. So there's that. Now, the stuff that's being moved is on the far right. That's inventory. And we're going to talk about inventory a lot during exam 3. But inventory is the stuff that's being moved. On the top is order processing. And as I said before, order processing is making sure it's the data, making sure that a customer order is coming in, and when it does, that they get the right stuff so that we can actually identify the things that they need and then send it to them in an appropriate fashion, hopefully quickly. So that's order processing. And then the last one is facility network. That's on the left side. And what that's also known as routing. This is the efficiency and effectiveness part of transportation. So as we deliver products and services and goods from place to place, we're looking at the transportation of the facility, so the network from the facility. So if I'm leaving the depot and I'm going to part A, part B, part C, part D, and then coming back, or I should say customer A, customer B, customer C, customer D, and coming back, is it done in an efficient manner? It's not driving all over the neighborhood, driving all over the city. It's being aware of where traffic incidents are. It's being aware of where construction is, etc. We're trying to be as efficient as possible with our fuel. Again, if we're only getting 7 miles per gallon with a truck, that can be eaten up pretty quickly if you have a last minute thought or a drop off or a pickup and going to the other side of town. So that facility network is how do I take my trucks and go from place to place to place, or my rail lines, my trains, etc. All right, so the goal is to meet customer service levels and total cost elements. Now, we talked about total cost ownership last time, right? It's the cost of before, during, and after a purchase is made. And so the after purchase is made, this is where logistics comes in. So we buy something, now we need to have it delivered to our facility. Product availability, we're going to talk about lead time. Lead time is when a person places an order to when they get it. So if you place an order on Amazon Prime and it takes 2 days to get to you, that's a lead time. And then finally, service quality, reliability, accuracy. We've talked about these things. Now with that is something called the 7 rights. What these are is traditionally, these are the 7 right things we have to do to make a happy customer as far as delivery is concerned. So the 7 rights are the right product. So we're going to have the right product delivered. Oh, okay. The right product, the right place. It's got to go to the right location. The right time. It has to be delivered on time, else it's considered a failure. The right price, because we don't deal with this much in the United States. But in other countries, they have something called value-added tax for a delivery, which means as the product gets delivered to you, you have to pay an extra fee, which is the value-added tax of using a delivery service, usually public. So like the post office, delivering something to your front door. And if you don't pay the value-added tax, you don't get the product. And so usually we talk about right price. It has to be the right price. Additionally, sometimes if we expedite, which means speed up delivery of something, we pay an extra price for it. So instead of a $4 shipment fee, it's a $28 shipment fee to get it the next day. That's the right price. The right customer, there are multiple people or multiple customers in the same facility. Make sure it gets to the right one. the right quality, which means it doesn't get damaged on the way for delivery, and then the right quantity. Have you ever gotten something from Amazon where you didn't order something, or you got 2 of something, you didn't expect it? That's the right quantity. You only wanted 1. But from the business perspective, giving you 2 or giving you 1 for free is detrimental to the business because that's 1 item they can't sell to somebody else now. So these are the 7 rights: the right product, the right place, the right time, the right price, the right customer, the right quality, and the right quantity. And something we skipped over in purchasing that I'll talk about here is, where do the 7 rights of logistics meet the 4 Ps of marketing? Well, the 4 Ps of marketing are promotion, place, price, and product. Obviously, the right product we want to have delivered, and then the right price is important, right? But really, where the 7 rights of logistics and marketing meet is at the right place, because you can't sell an item unless it gets to the right place, and the right place is where a person will buy it. So if we can't, place is so important for logistics that we want to have it delivered to that right location. And if we don't have it delivered to the right location when the customer needs it, then that's a challenge. It's a stock out. And a stock out is a term meaning that we can't sell the product that's not available. So when you've gone to get something that's on sale at a store, usually you may have a stock out too. You've experienced a stock out, and then you think, well, I don't want to go here anymore. Can I buy it online? Can I go to a different location that's not far away? And the problem with a stock out, as we'll learn later in this semester, is not only do you lose revenue as the firm, but you also could potentially lose customer loyalty in the future. So those are the 7 rights, and I just want you to be aware of them. Normally I had pictures up here too, but I must have deleted those. Okay, time for some terminology. And if we don't get much further than this today, then I feel pretty good. All right, so it's starting at the very top. When a product gets delivered from point A to point B, the person sending it out, shipping the product, is called the shipper, right? They're also called the consignor. But obviously the shipper probably makes sense, right? But a consignor might be a term you've not heard before. So when you get especially an international freight bill that you have to sign, something that came from the United Kingdom or something that came from Germany, then it'll say consignor, and that consignor is the person who sent it. Now the receiver, the person who receives the package, probably you, right? They're also called consignees. And so on a bill of lading, on a form, you'll see it'll say signature here, sign here, consignee. Well, that's you. That means you're receiving the product. So you have the shipper and you have the receiver, or you have the consignor and consignee. All right. Second, the trucking company itself, the delivery company, is called the carrier. So they're actually carrying the product from the consignor to the consignee. And there's 3 parts. There's common, contract, and private. Common carriers are carriers that can be used by anybody. You can sign up for them as a person who just needs to make a delivery. You can use it. So a common carrier would be a individual trucking company or individual rail company that anybody can use. So CSX is a rail company that anyone can use. I think we have a facility in Plainfield. Technically, the post office and FedEx and UPS, anybody can use, although they're going to be called specialty carriers, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Contract carriers are carriers that are specific to a designated company. They deal with a company specifically, and it's usually because of a unique feature. So some trucks will have refrigeration units to keep food cold, to keep products cold. Some trucks are devoted specifically to a company. And so even though the company doesn't own the trucks, the retailer doesn't own the trucks, then the the contract is a trucking company that works specifically with them. So every now and then you'll see trucks that have a certain design on the top. I think there was a chicken car that came by, at least in Greenwood for a while. It had a giant plastic chicken on top of the car. The chicken truck, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, right? It's a company that has something specific where it's advertising for the retailer, Oscar Mayer hot dogs, but it's not owned by Oscar Mayer. So another type of truck, as you'll see every now and then, is you'll see fuel trucks. So they're, instead of having a box trailer in the back, you'll see more of a spherical one, and that, or rectangular. What's the word I want? Cylindrical back, and it usually has fuel in it, and it's going to a pilot gas station, or it's going to a specific gas station so it can drop its fuel off. Those are contract trucks. And here's why. Most companies don't need that kind of truck. They don't need the cylindrical back. They don't need a fuel container. So a company that can get in and say, hey, we'll deliver your fuel for you to a certain gas location, that would be a contract company. Now, the converse of this is something called a private carrier. A private carrier is a company, a retailer that owns its own fleet. So what companies have their own trucks you see on the highway? So translation, what trucks do you see on the highway that advertise a certain company? So what can you think of? What companies have their own trucks? Swift, perfect. Swift it does have its own trucks, although I would argue that Swift is a contract carrier because Swift is its own company. They don't really sell anything, they just do delivery. Any others? Oh, come on, there are a bunch of them. Walmart has their own trucks, Target has their own trucks. Now Amazon has their own trucks. Right? So all these companies, they have their own trucks. Even technically Pilot has their own trucks. Pilot used to rent fuel containers or fuel trucks so they could deliver gas, and they would rent them from a company like Swift. And instead, now they started just taking their own. So if you see a cylindrical back of a truck, you usually will see a Pilot symbol or logo on the back of it. So companies that have their own fleets are private companies, and that means nobody else can use them. Only that company can use them. Now, the downside of having a private fleet is that you have to do all the maintenance and the cost on them. You've got to employ the drivers, you've got to pay the insurance, you've got to have the fuel. So why would you go private? Why wouldn't you just use a contract carrier? So why specifically? Why would you go private? It's a lot more cost to you. And it really comes down to just one idea. Walmart has their own trucks. Amazon has their own trucks because of, and the answer is control. I want to have control of when a delivery gets delivered. As a matter of fact, before Celadon had gone bankrupt in Indianapolis, Celadon was a trucking company over by Post Road on the east side of the circle. Excuse me. And they used to complain about Amazon. They'd have Amazon as a key customer account. Well, Amazon requires a truck to be delivered of goods to a certain location in Amazon warehouse within a half hour of that delivery time. So you could be, let's say that time window was 10:30 a.m. today. Well, you could be there and make the drop off between 10:30 or 11, and if you didn't make that window, then you end up paying for the delivery. It is a crazy, crazy, unexpected time. Well, a lot of trucking companies couldn't do it. A half-hour window, let's say the drop-off delivery point is Miami. So making a delivery out 2 days, let's say Wednesday, to get there at 10:30 a.m. on a Friday is hard, right? Because the drivers will continue to drive. They'll drive through the night so they can make their time window. And by the time they get to that delivery point, if they get there after 11, then that company doesn't make money. But it's Amazon. Amazon's a huge retailer. And so concern was, you know what, instead of having these trucking companies that really can't deliver, let's have our own fleet. And we'll make sure that our own fleet can make those deliveries in those specific time windows. So there's a lot here. There's a lot of probably that we're talking about that you haven't thought about before. A couple other things. If we go to the slide, a trucking company is called a third-party logistics company. There's some transportation right there. So a trucking company is called a 3PL. You'll probably hear this terminology thrown around in a company. When you graduate and you start working in a company that produces anything or takes deliveries in, you'll hear a term called 3PL. 3PL is third-party logistics. This is a company that is not owned by the retailer, the consignor, or the consignee, and they are the carrier. So you'll often hear 3PLs. And there are all kinds of 3PLs. It's not just trucking companies. A 4PL is a company that has multiple modes of transportation. So they could own planes and they could own trucks, and something like FedEx, where FedEx has planes at the airport, but also has trucks that say FedEx Ground on them, which means you kind of go to them as a one-stop service. So we'll talk about those. Those are actually called specialty carriers. And those specialty carriers are more of a total service package instead of just a trucking company. Now, the types of trucks that we have, the distance of a truck, a trailer, I'm sorry, the distance of a trailer from the point where it touches the cab all the way to the back where it has the loading doors, approximately in the United States is about 53 feet. So next time you're driving on the highway, you're driving on 31, you're driving on 465 or 65, take a look for that. When you see a truck go by, see if you can find the symbol 53 on there somewhere. And what that is signifying is that is a standard, the trailer complement is a standard 53 feet. When you talk about contraband and things that are stolen, drugs, guns, whatever, stolen equipment, one of the tricks that drivers will do is that they'll say they have a 53-foot truck, and yet it'll only be about 52 feet. Now, the trailer was made to be 53 feet long, but there's usually a secret compartment that's about 6 inches or a foot away on the back wall. And so contraband gets stored there. And so really when it talks about the delivery, it's only 52 feet with the contraband area being only 1 foot. Similarly, there are refrigerated trucks, like I mentioned before. There are also hybrid trucks. So Domino's is a great example of this, Domino's Pizza. They have a truck where it's a refrigerated truck only to a certain point. And they have a wall inside the truck that they can move around. They can move forward or backward. And on the other side of that wall is their dry goods. So what would you need for refrigeration for a pizza truck? Well, for your pasta sauce, for your dough, things like that, your cheese. So on one side, you've definitely got the refrigeration point. On the other side, you've got dry goods like pizza boxes that can't get wet, because if they do, they start to wilt, right? So you have this, it's called a dry wall that gets put in between and can be moved either up or back in the trailer. And so we have these different parts of the 3PLs, and in that case, it's a private company. Okay, so we've talked about the distance, we've talked about what a carrier is. Next thing we need to know is what is a truckload, a TL, and an LTL, a less than truckload. A TL is a truckload, a company or a vehicle that has the full trailer filled. And there's two ways to fill a trailer. You can either do it by physical space. So if you've ever moved before or helped somebody move before, they have so much stuff they need to move into the new house or the apartment, and it just fills up the entire truck. There's really very little space that can still be found. That's called filling it by space, right? So filling the whole truck out by space, and so there's nothing there. There's another way to fill a truck, which is filling it by weight. So you can fill the entire truck by just whatever its gross volume weight is, which is usually found on the outside of the truck. So it can't exceed anything from 65,300 pounds. So you can imagine if you were carrying cinder blocks, you actually have a lot of physical space left, right? So it's also filling up by space is known as cubing out. So we're going to cube out a truck. So if you imagine a bunch of boxes that are there, cubing out this truck, or weighting out this truck. So if you weight out the truck, they've got so many heavy items that are in there that there's a lot of physical space, but you've hit the maximum weight limit. And the reason that's important is because trucks have to follow a certain weight limit. If they don't, and when they go over a bridge, it can cause problems with the bridge collapsing or the bridge deteriorating over time, pieces of cement or pieces of the plastering coming off the bridge and making it unsafe over time. And so the weight limits are really important for logistics, particularly trucks, because there are different geographic masses like bridges and certain roads that have weight requirements. And you've probably seen those too. When you've been driving, you'll see like no more than 3 tons across this bridge, no more than 5 tons across this bridge. The content is also important. So sometimes you'll see, if you go through a bridge, like on a highway, you'll see a symbol that says hazardous content, or HC, and you'll see a red circle and a slash through it, meaning you can't carry fuel, you can't carry other types of explosive materials through it, you can't carry weaponry. It's important, even if it's a military truck, that you can't go through bridges. I'm thinking Route 95 and the Fort McHenry Bridge in Baltimore, because I used to live there. And so we'd have you had to have reroutes. So you had to go ways to go around the bridge, because if something potentially catastrophic happened on a bridge, it would be very detrimental to driving in that area, and hazardous for the people who are driving too. Okay, a less than truckload is having less than the maximum weight or the maximum space. So if I have a truck, let's say a small box truck that has one package in it, somebody's ordering a dryer for their home, and all I have is one package in it, I can put a lot more weight or a lot more goods in there. But because of the time constraints, I need to have this dryer by tomorrow. I'm only going to have a one package truck. Well, that's not efficient. And so often we call those LTLs, or less than truckloads. That's another sign or another code you'll hear as you start doing more of this. So we're going to have an LTL. Now, the problem is a delivery cost for the customer is usually based on the distance that the item is traveled, the truck is going, and it's based on the amount of weight that's in the truck. So the more packages you have, the more weight you have, the more the cost gets amortized or spread out over all those customers. Well, if you have one dryer in the back of a truck and you have a somewhat, I don't know, medium distance, let's say 20 miles to go for that delivery, all that cost is on you because it's just one item, one dryer in the truck. And so often you'll talk about things called LTL services. Truck companies like to have full truckloads filled, either weighed out or cubed out. And if they don't, then they'll have what's called an LTL service. That LTL service is usually a small box truck, or maybe it's a full-size truck that allows saying, okay, if you need an immediate expedited delivery, we'll help you, and we'll do that for you, but it's going to cost you. And so you'll see this term LTL occasionally, and that's another one to know. So 3PL is a big one, LTL is another one, and know what a full truckload is and how to do it. You either can weigh it out by having too much weight in the truck, or you can cube it out, filling it by space where you don't have any physical room left. All right, 4 more terms. One is called backhaul, and with backhaul is something called deadhead. Deadhead is usually going driving a distance that has nothing in the back. You're not making any money on the trip. So for example, imagine you're a furniture company, you're delivering couches, and you're going from customer A to customer B to customer C and customer D and then back to the depot. Well, if you have a truck that's full of lots of furniture going from the depot, which is your warehouse, you go out to customer A and you drop some off at Value City Furniture. Then you go to customer B and you drop some furniture off at Kittles. Then you go to customer C, you drop some more furniture off at a different Kittles location. And then you go to customer D and you go to a different furniture store. Now, as you go from D back to your warehouse, you have no couches. You've dropped off everything. And so that travel from D back to the warehouse, there's nothing in the back of your truck. Translation, you're not making any money on that drive, because money is made when you deliver goods or pick up goods, right? So since there's nothing in the back of your truck, it's called deadhead. There's nothing there. And if you're at Walt Disney World, if you ever go through the busing system at Walt Disney World on vacation, you'll see some buses that don't have anything on them, so they don't have any passengers in them. And usually what that stands for is a 4-digit code that they'll have at the front of their bus. It'll be something like DHMK or DHHS or DHAK. And that first 2 codes stands for deadhead, which means there's nobody in the vehicle and you're not making any money. Now, technically, Disney doesn't make money through the busing system, but that's irrelevant at this point. Deadhead means that it's being delivered to a location and there's no passenger on board. So technically, there's nothing there. There's no delivery. The second letter stands for the location, the theme park. So DHMK would be Deadhead Magic Kingdom. DHAK would be Deadhead Animal Kingdom. DHHS would be Deadhead Hollywood Studios. Translation, we're bringing the bus there for a reason, maybe to deliver one passenger, or maybe there's a need for a bus to be there because they're short on buses. But the deadhead signifies there's no passengers. Just like in a delivery service, the deadhead would symbolize it's an empty truck. No money is being made. Now, a way to get around deadhead is something called backhaul. And backhaul is when I'm supposed to have a deadhead, say, going from customer D back to the depot, back to my warehouse. But instead, customer D says, hey, I've got some returned goods for you. Can you take these and ship them to the producer? So I've got some washing machines that just aren't working. I've got 2 of them. Would you bring them back to your warehouse and then send them to Whirlpool? Well, now the road that was deadhead from customer D back to the depot is now actually a backhaul, because I'm actually making money on something that I wasn't expecting. So it's called a non-paying load, or in other words, it's not a load that I was expecting to make money on. But now that I'm taking these 2 broken washing machines from Whirlpool back to my warehouse from customer D, I suddenly have a load again. And I can make money on that load in the future by sending them back to Whirlpool and saying, hey, what's wrong with these washing machines? So that's called backhaul. It's more of a last minute, or it's a way to get additional revenue based on a delivery that I'm taking from point A to point B, or in this case, customer D to the depot. So I'm now putting cargo in the back of my truck that I wasn't expecting. So that is backhaul. And usually where you'll see backhaul is on pallets. So we get to customer C, or customer C says, you know what? Thank you for delivering the couches. I appreciate it. I've got all these pallets from last week when you delivered to me then. Can I give them back to you? And the same thing with customer D. So now I'm going with C to D. I still have cargo that goes to D, but I'm also getting pallets as well. And customer D is also giving me pallets. So now I'm bringing pallets back to my warehouse to store so I can eventually sell them later, sell them back to the producers, or sell them back to the manufacturers so they can put additional furniture on them. So that's a form of backhaul as well. So deadhead means I'm traveling without any cargo, so I can't make money on it. Backhaul means that I'm traveling with cargo that I wasn't expecting. And now it's called a non-paying load or a non-expected load. And now I'm making money off of that. The third term is called intermodal, when there are different modes of transportation in one trip. So if I have a product coming off the boat from China and it's getting to the airport in Oakland, and I'm flying it from the airport to Indy, and then I'm taking it off the Indy airport, putting it on a truck and delivering it to Franklin. That's intermodal, because there are three modes of transportation. There's boat or water, there's air through plane, and there's truck. And then the last one is demurrage. Demurrage you'll see every now and then. It's kind of a fee or a fine paid to a company that's borrowing a truck for too long. So usually there's a 48-hour period. You can, if a truck makes a delivery and you can't take the delivery right now, you can wait up to about 48 hours before you get charged extra money or a demurrage. And if it can't be taken off at the right time, then you get charged this extra fee, this extra penalty by the carrier, because they could use that truck for another delivery later. And that fee is called demurrage. Now, another form of demurrage is when you have a rail car. Let's say we have stuff or inventory in a rail car, and we want to have it, and they want to be able to use the rail car again. So they can't take it unless you take your stuff out for your company. And again, 48-hour period. If you can't get somebody there to take the items off of your carrier for that rail car in 48 hours, you get charged an extra fee, because that's a car that could have been used for something else, a later delivery. Another form of this is detention, and it's worth mentioning because it happens so often. Sometimes a company like Kroger will have a sale on toilet paper. And so they have an entire truck coming to their warehouse, to their location, that's just toilet paper. And it's on sale, so it's supposed to go pretty quickly. But you know what? An entire trailer of toilet paper is hard to manage. You know, where do you put that in your warehouse? Do you take it off? And so what some companies will do is detention. They'll just hold on to their toilet paper. They'll just leave it in the truck and then just rent the truck. We'll say, hey, thank you for the trailer. I appreciate the trailer. We're just going to have it sitting in the back of our loading dock and stay there until the sale is over. And then you can have whatever's left and send it back to your warehouse. But in the meantime, we're just for like a week, because our sale is for a week and we just expect to sell so much toilet paper. We're just going to take the trailer, put it on its legs, hold it in the back of the warehouse at the loading dock. So anytime we need toilet paper for the sale, we have to restock our shelves. It's right there. It's just in the truck. And so that's called detention. So when you drive past a warehouse, drive past a Meijer or a Kroger or a Walmart, sometimes you'll see these trailers just sitting there at the back by the loading dock, and they don't have a cab, they don't have a truck. And that's called detention, and that's intentional. So they're paying an extra fee to hold on to that truck just to store the item. So that's called demurrage. All right. And there's one more slide I wanted to have that I don't know where it is, so I'll just quiz you now. There are 6 modes of transportation on how to carry goods, and I'll end it here. What are the 6 modes? Well, truck is one of them. A rail car, or rail, is the second one, so trains that go by. Boats, water, cargo, so water barges that you'll see that have containers on them is a third. Right? Airlines or planes is a fourth. And so you'll have planes that fly overhead for expedited shipping. The fifth one that people don't often think of is pipeline. So if you have an oil pipeline or a gas pipeline, it's bringing cargo, fuel, from point A to point B, but it doesn't move. So that's always an interesting situation, but it's something people don't think about. And the 6th form of cargo that's not official, but is coming out, a 6th form of transportation is drone. Because companies like Amazon and others are working on trying to get drones to go from point A to point B to make deliveries. So there's 6 forms of transportation. Anytime a delivery has more than 2, that's called intermodal. Okay. I will stop it here for today. Any questions? I'm going to stop the